The silence in my private conference room at Catalyst Dynamics was thick enough to cut with a knife. It was a silence that crackled with shocked disbelief and a raw, dawning terror. Across the polished mahogany table from me sat Scarlett, my younger sister, the golden child, the one who was all with the star. She was clutching the edges of the leather-bound chair, her knuckles white. Her designer suit, likely chosen to make a powerful impression, looked suddenly ill-fitting costume-like. She had walked in here minutes ago radiating confidence, a carefully curated picture of ambition and polish. But that confidence had evaporated the moment she fully registered where she was and who I was. "Harper?" She whispered, her voice thin and shaky, barely audible. This is your office Catalyst Dynamics, but I thought you just did that little online thing." I leaned back in my chair, the one custom-made to fit perfectly behind my imposing desk, the one that signified my place at the head of this multi-million-dollar company. I allowed myself a small, slow smile, one that didn't reach my eyes. A dangerous smile, I knew. One that held the weight of years of being unseen, misunderstood, and quietly underestimated. "That little online thing, Scarlett." I repeated, my voice calm level, but with an edge sharp enough to slice through the carefully constructed facade she presented to the world. "You still think that's all it is." I looked around the room at the panoramic view of the city skyline, outside the floor-to-ceiling windows at the state-of-the-art video conferencing system, at the hushed professionalism that permeated the air of my company. "No, Scarlett, this isn't just a little online thing. This is Catalyst Dynamics, and you are sitting in the private conference room of the CEO. Of me." Her eyes widened, darting around the room as if seeing it for the first time. The logo etched into the glass wall, the company name clearly visible on documents on the side credenza. The realization hitting her fully physically, the sheer impossible scale of it. But you signed the papers. You said you were meeting with the CEO." She stammered the words, tripping over themselves. She had come here expecting to impress some powerful executive, someone she could network with, someone who could potentially offer her a position worthy of her prestigious degrees. She had prepared her polished pitch, her list of accomplishments, her dazzling smile. And she had found me. Just minutes before she came in, my assistant Mark discreetly handed me a tablet. On the screen was Scarlett's social media feed, updated just before she entered the building. A triumphant selfie in front of the Catalyst Dynamics logo in the lobby. Caption, "Big day ahead, meeting with the top brass at Catalyst Dynamics Future Executive Energy." And just as Mark took the tablet back, Scarlett had made a comment to him loud enough for me to hear through the intercom. "Make sure the CEO knows I'm here. Tell them Scarlett Perez is ready. I think they'll find my background from Wharton and MIT exactly what a company like this needs right now, especially if they're trying to move beyond smaller-scale operations." The subtle jab at whatever she thought my online thing was, the effortless arrogance, the assumption that she was the one doing us a favor by showing up. That was the catalyst. The final unnecessary twist of the knife from a wound that had never fully healed. I leaned forward, my smile fading, replaced by a cold, hard expression that mirrored the look in my eyes. "Ready, Scarlett? Ready to impress the CEO of Catalyst Dynamics?" I picked up a simple clicker from the table. "Ready to talk about moving beyond smaller-scale operations?" The fear on her face intensified. She nodded a tiny, jerky movement. "Good," I said, my voice dropping slightly. "Because I'm ready to show you exactly what I've been building, Scarlett. While you were busy climbing ladders, someone else said I was building the entire building." The silence returned heavier this time, charged with the weight of years of history, of expectation, of fundamental misunderstanding. To understand why this moment felt like the only possible ending to our story, I said, my voice shifting, becoming more distant, more reflective, telling the tale of a life lived in the shadows of expectation, and why I let it all unfold this way. I have to go back to the very beginning, back to the foundations they never saw. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the one who preferred books to parties, intricate puzzles to social games, the one who spent hours dismantling and reassembling old electronics, fascinated by how things worked beneath the surface. My younger sister Scarlett was the opposite, beautiful, charismatic, effortlessly popular. She shone under the spotlight. Our family loved us both, but the love felt different. My parents saw Scarlett and saw the future they had dreamed of: prestigious universities, a high-flying career, a life of visible success and social connections. They doted on her, celebrated every achievement, every award, every mention of her name. She was the tip of the iceberg they proudly pointed to. I was the foundation, the reliable one, the one who got good grades without needing constant praise, the one who helped fix the Wi-Fi, set up the new computer, quietly manage the household budget when things were tight, the one who listened to their worries but didn't share her own ambitions because they were too abstract, too technical, too different. My parents, bless their hearts, never quite understood what I did. After I graduated college with a degree in computer science, I didn't go into corporate banking like Isabella. I started building something online, something complex involving algorithms, data analysis, and creating efficient digital workflows for businesses. When they asked about my work, it was always vague. "So, Harper, how's that little business thing? Still doing that? Digital workflow, something?" They'd laugh, a light dismissive sound, as if my work were a quaint hobby. Meanwhile, every conversation about Scarlett was filled with specifics. Scarlett just got into Wharton and MIT for her dual masters. Can you believe it? She's going to be a force in the financial world. Or, Scarlett had an interview with Fortune 500 company name. They reached out to her. My father especially struggled to grasp my path. He wanted me to have a real job, a stable position in a known company. He saw my work as risky, nebulous, somehow less valid than climbing the corporate ladder Scarlett was on. "Maybe you could look for an entry-level administrative role at a bigger company, Harper," my mother suggested kindly more than once, usually after hearing about Scarlett's latest triumph. "Just to get your foot in the door. Get some structure. You still can't decide what you really want to do." I still can't decide what I want to do. I had decided years ago. I wanted to build, to create systems, to solve complex problems. But my definition of success, my path, didn't fit into the boxes they understood. They saw my quiet focus, my preference for working independently as indecision as a lack of ambition. They saw the absence of a fancy job title at a recognizable corporation as a sign of failure. They saw the part of the iceberg above the water, and if it wasn't big and flashy like Scarlett's, they assumed there was nothing substantial below. This persistent underestimation, this casual dismissal of my efforts and my very nature, wasn't just annoying. It was deeply painful. It created a chasm between me and my family, a constant aching loneliness. But it also hardened my resolve. It became my secret fuel. I stopped trying to explain myself. I stopped seeking their approval or understanding. I decided to build my empire in the shadows they relegated me to. Let them think what they wanted. Their lack of vision became my greatest asset. Catalyst Dynamics wasn't born overnight. It started as a consulting service for small businesses needing help streamlining their digital operations. I was a one-woman show initially, working from my apartment, putting in 80-hour weeks. I poured every ounce of my energy, my knowledge, my savings into it. It was the hardest, most exhilarating work of my life. My initial clients were small, but the results I delivered were big. Improved efficiency, reduced costs, streamlined workflows that genuinely changed how they did business. Word of mouth spread. My reputation grew not through flashy marketing, but through undeniable outcomes. Over the next decade, Catalyst Dynamics evolved. I hired a small, incredibly talented team. We developed proprietary software tools based on my core methodologies. We moved into larger offices, then a whole floor. We landed major contracts with mid-sized companies, then large corporations. The little business thing became a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Our digital workflow solutions were considered cutting-edge, indispensable. Catalyst Dynamics didn't just become a multi-million dollar company, it became a leader in its niche, pulling in eight-figure revenues, expanding rapidly. And I, Harper Sanchez, the quiet girl from the family BBQs, was its sole founder and CEO. To maintain focus, avoid unwanted attention, and frankly keep my privacy from the kind of people who might only be interested in the tip, I deliberately kept a low public profile. My official corporate bio was brief. My photos limited to professional headshots, often using my middle name and mother's maiden name, Harper Eleanor Reed, for certain public-facing roles or publications. Most people in the industry knew the name Harper E. Reed, the brilliant mind behind Catalyst Dynamics. But few knew the full story, or the person behind the name. A recent Forbes profile had even highlighted Harper E. Reed as an influential woman in tech, discussing her unique approach to operational efficiency, estimating her company's value in the hundreds of millions. I read it in my penthouse office, a quiet private validation. While I was building my quiet empire, Scarlett was navigating the world she had been groomed for. After getting her dual masters, the initial shine of those degrees began to fade in the harsh light of the real world. She landed prestigious-sounding jobs, but struggled to deliver tangible results. Her talent lay in presentation and networking and climbing ladders, but perhaps not in building them or fixing the ones that were broken. The high-pressure world of finance demanded substance beyond the surface. She jumped between roles, each one less glamorous than the last, the gaps between jobs growing longer. The high expectations of our family weighed heavily on her. She needed a win, a big one. She needed a job that would prove she was still the star, still on the path to greatness the family predicted. And she needed it soon. The dazzling facade she presented to the world and to our family was beginning to crack. Somehow, through her networking or job applications, Scarlett heard about an opening at Catalyst Dynamics, a senior management position that offered significant responsibility and a high salary. She saw the company's reputation, its growth, the impressive title of the role. It was exactly the kind of opportunity she desperately needed, to reclaim her narrative to be the star again at the next family gathering. She sent in her application completely unaware of who owned the company, seeing it only as the next rung on a prestigious ladder. When Scarlett's application landed on my desk, forwarded by HR with a note about her impressive academic background, I felt a strange mix of disbelief and grim satisfaction. Scarlett applying to my company for a role that reported directly to an executive I had personally hired. The irony was almost poetic. I could have simply rejected her application, disappeared back into my anonymous success, but the years of being overlooked, of the dismissive smiles, of the casual assumption of my lesser value, it all culminated in that moment. This wasn't just about business, it was personal. It was a chance not for petty revenge, but for undeniable, irrefutable truth, for the foundation to finally show the tip just how much weight it held. I instructed Mark to proceed with the interview process, but with one key difference. Scarlett would go through the initial screening with HR and a department head, but the final interview, the crucial one, would be with the CEO. With me. I gave strict instructions that my identity as the CEO was not to be revealed to Scarlett beforehand. Let her come in with her prepared confidence, her dazzling presentation ready to impress the head honcho of the successful company she was gracing with her presence. The tension built over the following weeks. Family calls were filled with excited chatter about Scarlett's promising interview process with that cutting-edge tech company. Scarlett herself called bubbly with confidence, talking about her research on Catalyst Dynamics, how impressed she was by its growth, how perfect the role was for her skills. Skills she implied that were clearly needed by a company like this. The casual underestimation was still there, woven into her excitement. She still didn't ask about my work, my company. She was too focused on her own reflection, in the shiny surface of her potential new employer. I played along. I asked vague questions about the company, about the role, about her strategy for the interview. I listened to her confident pronouncements about how she would modernize things, how her network would be invaluable, how her leadership style would transform the team. It was like listening to a recording of every conversation I'd ever had with our family about her potential, her brilliance, her inevitable success. The day of the interview arrived. I had a critical 9:00 a.m. board meeting scheduled to close an acquisition deal and announce the expansion of my executive team. Mark, my assistant, confirmed my schedule. Ms. Reed, he said, using my professional name. Board meeting at 9, and Ms. Scarlett Perez has arrived for her final interview. She's 25 minutes early. He paused, a slight smile playing on his lips. She seems very eager, posting live updates about her future executive role at Catalyst Dynamics. Of course she is, I murmured. Mark cleared his throat. The board members are starting to arrive. They're curious about why you're personally handling this particular candidate's final interview. Tell them, I said, walking towards my private conference room, the one where I would meet Scarlett. Tell them I'm conducting a strategic assessment of an important potential asset. I entered the conference room and took my seat at the head of the table facing the door. I didn't immediately turn to look at the view. I focused on the documents in front of me, the final acquisition papers, the list of my new executive team members, and Scarlett's impeccably formatted resume, filled with impressive academic credentials and vague job descriptions. Mark escorted Scarlett into the room. I heard the door open, her confident footsteps, the rustle of her expensive suit. I remained facing the table, reviewing the documents, giving her a moment to take in the room, the atmosphere. Let her bask in the expectation. Ms. Perez, I heard Mark say. Please have a seat. Ms. Reed will be with you in just a moment. I heard her pull out a chair, the slight rustle of fabric as she sat. I imagined her sitting there poised, confident, ready to dazzle the CEO of Catalyst Dynamics, ready to claim her spot at the top. I finished reviewing the document I was looking at. I took a slow breath. I closed the folder. Then I turned my chair to face her. Her expression, initially confident and expectant, dissolved in an instant. The practiced smile vanished. Her eyes, bright and ambitious moments ago, widened in shock, then narrowed in confusion, finally settling on disbelief and dawning horror. She looked like she had seen a ghost, a very ordinary, very underestimated ghost. Harper, she whispered again, the sound faint, disbelieving. What are you doing here? I met her gaze, my expression calm, unreadable. I didn't need to shout. My presence here in this room at this table spoke volumes. Welcome to your final interview at Catalyst Dynamics, Scarlett. I said, my voice soft but clear. I am Harper E. Reed. I paused, letting the professional name sink in. Also known as Harper Sanchez, founder and CEO of this company. The silence returned heavier this time, thick with the weight of shattered assumptions, broken expectations, and years of buried resentment rising to the surface. Scarlett stared at me, unable to speak, her carefully constructed composure crumbling before my eyes. The girl who had always been so good at words had none left. But that's impossible? She finally stammered, her voice barely a whisper. You run that little online thing, the workflow site. That little online thing, I said, my voice gaining strength, is Catalyst Dynamics, the company that builds essential operational software for Fortune 500 companies. The company with 8-figure revenues. The company I built from scratch, working out of my apartment while you were getting your dual masters to climb a ladder I decided not to take. I gestured around the room. This building, my building, this office, my office, this company, mine. I looked at her, at the girl who had always shone so brightly in our family's eyes while I was in the background. You thought I was a failure, Scarlett? You mom, dad? You all just assumed. You never bothered to ask what I was actually doing. You saw a different path than yours and decided it was less valuable, less successful. I leaned forward, my voice dropping, slightly confidential, exposing a truth I had observed from a distance. You came here expecting to walk into a high-level executive role, didn't you? Thinking your prestigious degrees and your networking would be enough. But the market's tough, isn't it? It takes more than a shiny resume and a confident handshake to succeed these days. You need to actually do the work. You need to build things that last, not just present them beautifully." Her face flushed. She had talked so confidently about her job search, her interviews, the amazing offers she was considering. But I knew from her social media posts between jobs the increasingly generic, exciting new opportunities. She mentioned the subtle hints of financial strain woven into conversations with other relatives that she had been struggling. The high-flying career hadn't materialized as easily as everyone expected. She wasn't just looking for a job at Catalyst Dynamics. She was looking for the job, the one that would save her reputation, her financial situation, her status as the golden child. And she was desperate. "I know you need this, Scarlett," I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. "I know the pressure you're under. But you don't fit here. This company values substance. We value building from the ground up. We value understanding the mechanics beneath the surface. All things you were taught were less important than the presentation." She finally found her voice laced with anger and wounded pride. You tricked me? You set this up. You're trying to humiliate me." "Did I trick you?" I asked softly. "Or did you trick yourself? Did you humiliate yourself by assuming the sister you overlooked couldn't build something greater than anything you ever aspired to climb?" I looked at her resume again, then pushed it gently back across the table. "You have impressive credentials, Scarlett, on paper. But based on this meeting and your evident lack of understanding of what this company actually does beyond the surface level, you are not a fit for the senior role you applied for. Or any role at this level." She stared at me, her eyes filling with tears of fury and frustration. "Look for opportunities elsewhere, Scarlett." I said, my voice firm, dismissing her as calmly as our father used to dismiss my work. "I'm sure your credentials will impress someone, somewhere." I stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. Scarlett remained frozen for a moment, then scrambled to gather her bag, her movements clumsy and panicked. She mumbled something I couldn't understand, a mix of accusations and hurt, before hurrying out of the room, leaving behind a palpable sense of shattered confidence and dashed expectations. I canceled my dinner plans with the family that night. I couldn't face their questions, their likely anger over how I had treated Scarlett. Over the following weeks, the family calls shifted. The dismissive jokes about my little business thing stopped abruptly. The bewildered questions about my real job were replaced by hesitant inquiries about Catalyst Dynamics, its valuation, its position in the market. They struggled audibly to reconcile the quiet girl they thought they knew with the reality of the successful CEO. The carefully constructed narrative of Scarlett's inevitable superior success and my assumed lesser path had been irrevocably broken. Scarlett was furious. She told her version of events to the family. That I had deliberately humiliated her, that I was cruel, that I had used my success to get revenge. Some family members sided with her, outraged on her behalf. Others were quieter, beginning to question their own long-held assumptions. A few months later, a major Forbes article came out, not using my alias. "The Silent Success: How Harper Sanchez Built a Tech Powerhouse from the Ground Up." It detailed my journey, my philosophy, the growth of Catalyst Dynamics, and yes, it touched upon the years of working in the background, the underestimation, the focus on building the foundation. The article hit my family like a shockwave. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages, a mix of awe. "Harper, is that really you?" Confusion and anger. "How could you do this to Scarlett?" "You've embarrassed your sister." Scarlett's messages were simply venomous, accusing me of using her to get publicity. I didn't respond to each message individually. I replied to the family group chat, the one where my accomplishments had always been minimized, where Scarlett's had always been amplified with one simple message. "You raised me to be successful. You always told me Scarlett was going places, that she would be a huge success, the pride of the family. You expected great things from her, and you expected something else from me. Congratulations. You got what you expected." My success spoke for itself. It was built not on praise or external validation, but on hard work vision and a quiet determination forged in the crucible of being consistently underestimated. I built something real, something lasting, something they could no longer ignore or define or diminish. The foundation was finally visible, holding up an entire city. After Harper Sanchez, the underestimated sister, became the CEO of a powerful company and revealed her truth. Do you think the family will ever truly understand their mistake, or will they continue to resent Harper's success and defend Scarlett? What would you say to someone who constantly dismisses your dreams or abilities, even if they are family? Please comment your opinion below.